Stop before you keep scrolling. I need you to understand something. The woman I was about to marry had already taken our honeymoon, with my best friend, on my credit card. In the suite I booked for us, while I was home writing their names on wedding invitations. She had been back for 14 months. She had looked me in the eye every single day of those 14 months. She had never said a word, and I had no idea. Until 72 hours before the wedding. I am going to tell you exactly what I did with those 72 hours. But first, I need you to see one moment, one single moment, because this moment is the key to everything. The moment that tells you everything. 3 years into their relationship. A Tuesday evening. Daniel comes home late, exhausted, jacket over one arm, good news finally after 6 weeks of grinding toward a deal that kept refusing to close. He walks through the door. He is holding a bottle of wine. He tells her they can finally book the honeymoon. She smiles. She kisses him. She says that is the best news she has heard all week. She opens the wine. And while Daniel is in the kitchen getting glasses, she picks up his phone from the coffee table. No password. He had never needed one. Nothing to hide. No reason to lock anything away from the woman he was building his life with. She opens his banking app, checks the main account, checks the investment account, checks the business account. She puts the phone back exactly where it was, face down, same angle, same position. She sits back down, picks up her glass, looks at the wall for a moment, feels nothing in particular, and when Daniel comes back from the kitchen with 2 glasses and that look on his face, the look of a man who is genuinely happy, who believes he is coming home to something real, she turns toward him with an expression he has seen 100 times, warm, present, effortlessly loving. She says, "Tell me everything about this suite you found." She had done this before. She would do it again. She was not checking because she was worried. She was not checking because she was curious. She was checking because she was managing a position. And a good manager always knows the numbers. Daniel never knew. He never even thought to wonder. That was his only mistake. And it was the most honest mistake a person can make, trusting someone completely. Daniel was 34, the kind of man who builds things carefully and believes in them completely. His company was growing. His friendships were old and deep. His relationship with Sarah was, he believed with everything he had, the best thing in his life. He had known Marcus since they were 19, 15 years. Let me tell you what 15 years of real friendship looks like. It looks like Marcus showing up at 2 a.m. when Daniel's father was rushed to the hospital. Nobody had called him. He had simply felt something was wrong and he came. It looks like Daniel lending Marcus money 3 separate times without a single document because paperwork felt like an insult to what they were to each other. It looks like 2 men who had watched each other fail and recover and fail again and never once, not once in 15 years, flinched. That is what Daniel had given. That is what Daniel believed he had received. He was half right. He had given all of it. Marcus had taken all of it. Those are not the same thing. What Daniel did not know was that Marcus had spent years quietly taking credit that belonged to Daniel. Client relationships Daniel had built appearing on Marcus's performance reviews. Commissions on accounts Marcus had inherited without developing. Small enough to stay invisible, consistent enough to matter. Marcus was not a man who did bad things occasionally. He was a man who had decided, somewhere in the middle of 15 years, that Daniel's generosity was a resource, not a gift, a resource. He had made the same decision about loyalty, and when Sarah entered their world, she recognized Marcus immediately, not as a threat, as a mirror, a woman. Sarah was the kind of beautiful that makes people want to find the words for it. Not just her face, the way she existed in a room. The way she made every conversation feel like the one worth having. The way she laughed at exactly the right moment. The way she made you feel, specifically, personally, like you were the most interesting thing in her world. She had worked very hard to be that way. She found Daniel at 29, stable, growing. The kind of man whose income in 5 years would look nothing like his income today. The kind of man people trusted immediately and without examination. She recognized what she was looking at. She moved in within 8 months. She wove herself into the fabric of his world, his friends, his family, his routines, his future. With the patience of someone who understood that real security was never in the relationship itself. It was in making the cost of leaving feel unbearable. She had almost made it. 6 minutes from the finish line. Almost. Here is what nobody knew. Not Daniel, not their friends, not anyone who attended the engagement party or liked the photographs or cried at the rehearsal dinner. The affair with Marcus had been running for 8 months before the wedding. It was not passion. It was not impulse. It was not the kind of thing that happens to people who lose control. Sarah did not lose control of things. She had looked at Marcus and recognized him. Two people inside Daniel's world who understood something Daniel never would. That genuine devotion, in the wrong hands, is not just something to be loved, it is something to be spent. Marcus offered something specific, close enough to Daniel's world to be useful, discreet enough to be manageable. A man who understood implicitly that what they were doing had a practical structure and no room for complication. Clean, that was the word. The Maldives was her idea. The booking confirmation had been in her possession for months. Daniel had given it to her so she could look forward to it. Feel how much thought he had put into it. Feel loved. She had looked at it and seen something different. $11,000. Already paid. A resort where nobody they knew would be. A reservation in Daniel's name that could be modified with a single phone call to the front desk. She made that call on a Thursday afternoon while Daniel was in a meeting. She added Marcus to the reservation. She used the shared credit card, Daniel's account, for 2 business class flights. She packed. She went. 7 nights. The suite Daniel had chosen because she had described it to him once. Ocean view, private balcony, the sound of the water at night. And he had wanted so badly to be the person who gave her that. He had given her that. She had simply decided who to take. She came home, let him kiss her hello, unpacked her suitcase, put the booking confirmation back in the drawer where she had found it, and kept planning the wedding. 14 more months, without a single word. I need you to sit with that. Not the affair, not the money. The 14 months. She came home from the honeymoon he had saved for, walked through the door, let him hold her, sat at the table he cooked at, slept in the bed they shared, looked him in the eye, every single day. For 14 months, not one moment of visible guilt, not one slip, not one night where the weight of it showed on her face. 14 months. Now, let me tell you about the night everything changed. 2 a.m. His phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number, no message, no name, no explanation. 4 photographs. He looked at the first one for a long time before his mind would accept what his eyes were telling it. A restaurant, a table for 2. Her hands in someone else's hands. Not nervously, not tentatively, but with the settled ease of 2 people whose hands have been finding each other long enough that neither one thinks about it anymore. He looked at the second one, a hotel corridor, a hand on the small of her back. Her face turned toward him, laughing. He knew that laugh. He had believed for 3 years that laugh belonged to moments they shared. He understood now it was just a sound she made when she felt comfortable. He looked at the third one, the beach. He knew that beach. He had spent 4 hours on a website choosing that beach, had described it to her. The color of the water, the way the light hit the resort in the evening, the balcony view she had once told him she dreamed about. She had asked him questions about it. He had answered every one. He put the phone face down. He sat on the edge of the bed. The room was quiet and dark, and her perfume was in the air, and he could hear her breathing behind him. Slow, even, undisturbed. And he sat there, and his mind went backward the way a mind does when the ground disappears under it. It went to the Tuesday evening, the bottle of wine. Her face when he talked about the booking, leaning forward, warm, asking questions he now understood were reconnaissance. It went to Marcus, the hospital at 2 a.m., the loans without paperwork. The toast 2 months ago at Daniel's birthday. Standing up, glass in hand, his voice breaking slightly, saying, "I have never been more proud to call this man my best friend." Daniel had gripped his shoulder, had felt, specifically, physically, the warmth of being known. He sat in the dark. He did not cry. He did not wake her. He did not make a sound. The minutes passed, the way minutes pass when time has stopped meaning anything. And then, somewhere between 4 a.m. and the first gray light coming through the curtains, the breaking finished, and something else began. Not healing, not forgiveness. Something that needed no name because it was not an emotion. It was a decision. At 6 a.m., he picked up his phone. He did not text Sarah. He did not call Marcus. He called his lawyer. "I need you to listen," he said, "and I need you to not ask me if I am sure." He told nobody. He went to the rehearsal dinner that evening. He smiled. He danced with his mother. He shook hands and accepted congratulations from people who were genuinely happy for him. He made a 3-minute toast, from memory, no notes, about loyalty and love and 15 years of brotherhood that made Marcus wipe real tears from his eyes. Daniel watched him do it, raised his glass, said thank you. He went home that night and worked with his lawyer until 3 a.m. He made the financial transfers the following morning, separated the accounts, prepared the apartment notice. 30 days. Sarah's name had never been on the lease, a detail she had never questioned because she had never expected to need it. She had always believed the relationship was the security. That was the miscalculation that cost her everything. He spent the afternoon building the presentation himself, 6 hours at his laptop. He did not delegate it. He did not rush it. Every photograph, every receipt. The credit card statement with the 2 business class flights, her name, Marcus's name, Daniel's account number, the date, the charge, highlighted in a color that demanded attention. The hotel confirmation showing Daniel's original booking and the modified guest list Sarah had submitted. 8 months of recovered text messages organized by date and formatted with the precision of a man who understood that what he was building needed to be undeniable. He checked the font at midnight. He checked the spacing at 1 a.m. He checked it again at 2 a.m. He was not going to do this badly. At 7 a.m. the morning of the wedding, he was at the venue before anyone else. He connected the presentation to the ballroom's AV system while the florist unloaded. Outside, and a woman in a green apron arranged centerpieces in the silence of the empty room. Every screen in the room. The decorative panels along the walls. The monitors flanking the aisle. The large projector behind the altar. The one meant to show their love story. He set it to trigger from his phone. He tested it once. Every screen responded simultaneously. He disconnected his laptop, straightened his jacket, and went to get married. There is something nobody talks about in stories like this. The last normal hour. The hour before everything becomes permanent. Daniel drove to the church in his wedding suit. The morning was clear. Traffic was light. A song came on the radio, one he and Sarah had heard on their second date. Specific enough to feel deliberate, as though the day itself had a sense of occasion. He turned it off. He parked. He walked into the church. He shook hands and smiled and accepted good wishes from people who had no idea they were 40 minutes from witnessing something they would describe to their grandchildren. He thought about that. He took his place at the altar. Marcus arrived. Handshake, backslap. The grin that had meant something for 15 years and now meant something entirely different. Daniel thought, you have absolutely no idea. He thought, this is the last moment in 15 years that I know something you don't. He thought, that is almost funny. Almost. The orchestra began. The doors opened. Sarah walked down the aisle. She was beautiful, the honest truth. Genuinely, remarkably beautiful. The dress was exactly right. The veil caught the light exactly right. The flowers in her hands were exactly what she had chosen from the catalog she had shown Daniel 6 months ago while he sat beside her and said, whatever you want. It is your day. If you had been standing in that room without knowing what you now know, you would have believed you were watching something real. Daniel watched her walk toward him. He thought about the banking app, her hands finding his phone while his back was turned. The moment she felt nothing, he thought, I finally see you. Completely. She reached the altar. She smiled at him, the smile she had perfected. He smiled back. The ceremony began. Officiant spoke. The readings were read. The music played. And then, does anyone present know of any reason these two should not be joined in marriage? The room went quiet. 260 people in black tie in a room that had cost $400,000 to fill. Comfortable silence. Ritual silence. The silence of a room full of people who know this line is a formality. Sarah looked at the officiant. Marcus looked at the floor. Daniel reached into his jacket. His hand was steady. He had spent 72 hours wondering whether his hand would be steady. It was. He pulled out his phone, opened one application, one button. He looked at it for just a moment. 72 hours, 4 hours in the dark on the edge of that bed. Every smile and toast and raised glass of the last 3 days. All of it leading here, to this room, this moment, this button. He pressed it. Every screen in the room changed, simultaneously. All of them, at once. The first image, a restaurant, a table for two, hands intertwined in the center. Not nervously, not tentatively, but with the complete ease of two people who have been doing this long enough to stop thinking about it. 260 people looked at it. Then 20 of them recognized her. The sound that moved through that room. Not a gasp, not a shout. Something quieter and more devastating than either of those things. The sound of comprehension arriving in a room all at once. The hotel corridor appeared, his hand on the small of her back. Her face turned toward him, laughing. Her mother, front row, close enough to touch the aisle, made a sound that had no name. The beach appeared, the Maldives beach. Daniel's voice, quiet, unhurried, carrying perfectly in the silence. That is the resort I booked for our honeymoon. 18 months ago, not a sound in the room. That is the suite, the private balcony overlooking the ocean. The room she told me she had always dreamed about. The receipt appeared, the credit card statement, her name, Marcus's name, Daniel's account number in the top right corner, the charge, the date, 4 months into their engagement, 3 weeks after Daniel had handed her the booking confirmation so she could look at it whenever she wanted and feel how much he cared. That is my credit card. The text messages, 8 months of them, across every screen in the room. The candles on the altar were still burning. The flowers Sarah had chosen were still in her hands. The room was still beautiful, $400,000 of beautiful. And in the middle of all of it, the truth was, projected across every surface in clean, readable text, that nobody in that room would ever be able to say they had not seen. Sarah's mother sat down the way people sit when their legs stop receiving signals. Marcus's father stood up too fast, and his chair hit the marble floor, and the sound of it, sharp, final, was the loudest thing in the room. Third row. A woman began to cry. Not dramatically, just quietly. The way you cry when something is happening that cannot be stopped and cannot be taken back, and all you can do is witness it. The presentation ran for 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Nobody spoke. Nobody looked at their phone. Nobody moved toward the exit. 260 people sat completely still and watched every second of it. When it finished, the screens went dark. The room was silent. The candles kept burning. Daniel stood. He took his time. He folded his jacket over the back of his chair with the deliberate care of a man who has decided that nothing about this moment will be rushed. He reached under his seat, picked up the cream envelope, walked to the altar, set it down, let it sit there, let every eye in the room find it. That envelope. Inside it, a bill, itemized, lawyer certified, every single dollar. The wedding venue, $40,000. The catering is $60,000. The orchestra, $12,000. The flowers, $8,000. The dress Sarah was currently standing in, $14,000. The ring on her finger, $22,000. The honeymoon suite they had already used, $11,000. The flights charged to his account, $4,000. 4 years of relationship expenses documented with the precision of a man who had spent 3 days making sure every number was exact and every signature was legal. Total, $419,000. Addressed to both of them, legally binding. He turned to Marcus. Marcus opened his mouth. Daniel did not let him. 15 years, he said. Quietly, not with rage. Something past rage. Something that had been refined over 72 hours into something much more precise than rage. 15 years? He turned to Sarah. She was looking at the floor. The dress, the veil, the flowers still in her hands because her hands had not yet received the instruction. I hope it was worth it, Daniel said, because that was the last thing you will ever take from me. He buttoned his jacket. 1 button. 2. He picked up his phone from the altar, and he walked. Not fast, not slow, just walked. Through the center of a 260 people who did not make a single sound as he passed. Through the doors. Into the morning, the doors closed behind him. 3 full seconds of absolute silence. Then Sarah's mother said her name, and everything came apart at once. The video was circulating before he reached his car. He knew it would be. 260 people with phones. He had factored that in. He had considered, during those 72 hours, whether the public nature of it bothered him. It did not. He drove. The apartment notice was already filed. 30 days. Sarah's name had never been on the lease, a detail she had never thought to examine, because she had always believed the relationship itself was the floor she was standing on. She was standing on Daniel, and Daniel had stepped aside. The shared credit card canceled as of 8 a.m. that morning. Every joint account closed and separated in the prior 72 hours. Friday afternoon, the senior partners at Daniel's company had received a forwarded email chain. 8 years of documented evidence. Marcus's name on client relationships he had not built. Commissions on accounts he had inherited and claimed. Performance reviews built on a foundation of borrowed credit. The kind of paper trail that is invisible until the person who constructed it decides to illuminate every inch of it. Monday morning, Marcus arrived at the office at 8:45. Security was in the lobby. He looked at them and understood immediately. His keycard declined at the elevator. His laptop was in a box by the reception desk. His hands, when he picked up the box, were not steady. He walked out through the glass doors with the box under his arm, and he did not look at anyone. And nobody said a word to him, and the silence that followed him out was the loudest thing he had experienced in his professional life. And then, the bill arrived. For both of them. Lawyer certified. Legally binding. A civil claim that had been filed quietly, precisely, in the 3 days before the wedding. $419,000, split between them. $209,500 each. Sarah had no savings. The accounts she had relied on were gone. The apartment was gone. The life she had constructed was dismantled with a thoroughness that left nothing to stand on. She got a lawyer. Her lawyer looked at the documentation Daniel had assembled. Her lawyer advised her to settle. She settled a payment plan that would take her 11 years to complete. 11 years. Every month, a direct reminder of the bill on the altar. Marcus had lost his income the same week the legal claim arrived. No savings of his own. He had spent years living at the edge of what he earned, supplemented by the quiet redirections he had been making from Daniel's world. That world was closed now. He got a lawyer too. His lawyer said the same thing Sarah's lawyer said. Settle. He settled. His payment plan would take him 9 years. 9 years of monthly transfers. 9 years of opening a bank statement and seeing the same name at the top. Daniel's name. Every single month. For 9 years. Marcus would later tell someone, a mutual acquaintance who passed it on, that the payments were not the worst part. The worst part was that they never stopped. There was no moment when it was over. No clean break. No fresh start. Just the bill. Every month. Arriving. The way consequences arrive when someone has been very thorough. Sarah stopped speaking to Marcus entirely within 3 months of the settlement. He had served his purpose. He was now only a liability. She moved to a different city. Smaller apartment. Different work. The grinding, quiet reality of a woman who had spent years calculating her way to a finish line and was now recalculating from a position she had never planned to occupy. She was still paying the bill when she turned 38. She would still be paying it at 40. Marcus was still paying it when his hair started going gray. Some debts are financial, some are moral. The truly elegant punishments are both. Daniel never found out who sent the photographs. He tried. The number traced back to a prepaid phone purchased with cash. No name, no location, no digital trail. Whoever sent them had not wanted to be found. He spent time thinking about that. Who had seen enough to document it? Who had cared enough, or been hurt enough, or been damaged enough by the same patterns to hold on to those photographs for over a year and deliver them at exactly the moment they could still be used? He never got an answer, and after a while he stopped needing one. What he understood instead was this. Somewhere in the world there was a person who had seen him walking toward a cliff edge and had made a decision, anonymously, without credit, without explanation, without ever needing him to know their name. He thought about that person sometimes, in the quiet, with something that felt like gratitude for a shadow. He took the trip, not the Maldives, somewhere he had always wanted to go and had never prioritized because for 3 years he had been building someone else's life instead of his own. He went alone. He ate well. He slept. He sat with the silence of a man who has stopped performing and started simply being present in his own existence. He was not immediately fine. That would be a lie, and Daniel was done with lies. Betrayal does something particular to memory. It goes backward through everything you believed was real and examines it with new information. Every good moment becomes a case to re-examine. Every tender exchange becomes evidence to re-evaluate. He did that work. He came out the other side with one understanding he had not had before. He had never been loved. He had been managed. And the difference between those two things, once you have felt both, once you understand the distinction in your body, is impossible to unknow. 14 months later, he met someone. He was not looking. He was not ready. She arrived anyway. The difference was not dramatic. It was not a lightning bolt. It was something smaller and more durable than that. It was this. One evening, she forgot to respond to a message he had sent, and she called him the next morning and said, "I am so sorry. I fell asleep. I should have told you I was tired." That was it. That was the moment. Not the apology, not the call. The fact that she had nothing to hide. The fact that a small, ordinary failure was just a small, ordinary failure. Not a managed situation, not a performance, not a calculation. Just a person being honest about falling asleep. He sat with that for a moment after the call ended. And he understood, for the first time, what he had been missing. Not love in the abstract. This specific quality of ease. The absence of the hum. He did not rush it. He did not perform it. He showed up as exactly who he was, and she stayed. At 36 years old, Daniel stopped being someone's position and became someone's person. That is the real ending. Not the ballroom. Not the bill on the altar. Not the video. Not the monthly payment notices landing in 2 separate apartments in 2 separate cities for the next decade. This, a man who fell asleep on a Tuesday evening with no hum, just quiet, just peace, Just his own life. Finally, completely his own. They say you should never spend money on revenge. I disagree. I spent $400,000, and I got every cent of it back. With interest, lawyer certified, monthly installments. For the next 11 years, she came into my life with a plan. She executed it with a patience and precision and a talent for making men feel chosen that was, I will give her this, genuinely extraordinary. She was very good at what she did, and somewhere out there, someone who had been on the receiving end of exactly what I was about to receive sent 4 photographs to a prepaid phone and disappeared. I never found out who it was. I never will. But wherever you are, thank you. You gave me 72 hours, and I used every single one of them. Nightmares theater. Some people are very good at taking, right up until the moment someone decides they are done being taken from. That moment is everything.